Go ahead.
Well, could you clarify what the fourth quarter was in China in terms of sales and what precipitated the decline that you talked about briefly on stage?
Well, we're going to wait for specific numbers until we do the quarterly earnings call. And in any case, we don't usually break it out by region because people draw too much from these quarter-to-quarter fluctuations. I mean, I'd say China was certainly a lot weaker than expected. Mostly, I think, because of misperception about the difficulty of charging, which we're correcting. And we are seeing now an uptick in our sales in China. They just weren't all that significant in the fourth quarter. But it was more than made up for by demand in Europe and North America. And I think the China situation is temporary and will get corrected later this year.
And that's still about
charging. That it was hard to charge.
When Norway's business day, the oil price has collapsed. The analysts don't expect to see $100 in several years. How is that going to affect your value proposition to customers and sales?
Well, I think it's not so much a question for the Model S to the Model X, which is a fairly expensive car. I think not many people are choosing to buy or not buy the Model S because of gasoline prices. It will have more of an effect on lower cost cars, but the challenge there is just to make sure that the cost of a mass market electric car is low enough such that the gasoline price drop is not, still makes it an economically sensible decision for somebody to buy. But there's no question that gasoline prices will have some negative effect on mass market cars. I don't see it having an effect on Model S or X.
Charlie Vogelheim, Motor Trend Audio. You've had some success in certain markets, particularly California Bay Area. Now with the announcement here of the Bolt coming out, electric cars was what you were talking about. Infrastructure is a problem. Where does the cooperation and the growth happen there? I know you're doing things, but what about the rest?
We're happy to cooperate on charging systems for the supercharged network, and there've been some preliminary discussions with other companies. And we've been very open that all that's needed is that they need to make a car that is able to take the high power levels of the supercharger and then share proportionately in the cost of the system according to what their usage of the network is. That's why we're not really seeing the creation of very compelling long-range charging systems apart from our own. They're all like low power, which is not good for long-distance charging. So, but our supercharger network will cover the entire lower 48 states and all of Europe, most of China, most of the world. In the next couple of years, there'll be we'll be within range of a supercharger. So we don't really need some other network.
Just in time, how many automakers have taken you up on your offer of using your patents?
We actually we don't require any formal discussions, so they can just go ahead and use them.
Is there a licensing process?
No, you can just use them. Which I think is better because then you don't have to get into like any kind of discussions or whatever. So we don't know. I think you'll see it in the cars that come out, if they choose to use them. Okay.
Dave Shepardson, Detroit News. Do you see the new Chevy Bolt as a competitive threat to the Model 3, and what's your overall assessment of the plug-ins and the EVs unveiled here?
Yeah, I don't see it as a competitive threat just because I think all cars will go electric. So if you think of it, if you define the set of competitive cars of cars that are electric, then sure, it's competitive. But that's not what we see. It's the competitive set of all cars, not simply cars that are electric. And there are 100 million new cars and trucks made every year. So what does it matter if someone makes a few 100,000 additional electric cars? It's not going to affect us really. Sure. I'll try to spend more time, I think, because otherwise very few people are going to get their questions answered. Yeah, go ahead.
The Model S was delayed, Model X is now delayed. Can you explain why?
In the case of the X, It took longer than expected to solve some of the technical challenges of the car, and we had to focus our energy on other things. So doing upgrades to the Model S, increasing the Model S production capability, deploying to various other countries. These all ended up being significant distractions. And then the X, we did a bit of a 2 steps forward, 1 step back with the X, because trying to get a car that has some radical new technology in it right is hard. I mean, if we just had a car with normal doors, it would be fine. But it's extremely important that the Falcon Wing doors are not just a gimmick, but that they are a fundamental improvement in the utility of the car, and that they work well and reliably.
Hi, Joanne Muller with Forbes. Have you met with any of the other CEOs of any of the major automakers to talk about this idea of more electric cars?
That's why I'm here.
Conversations? Who have you talked to while you're here?
Well, I talked to the whole audience. I haven't actually had...
I mean, have you had one-on-one conversations?
No, not here. I've had one-on-one conversations in other cities. I'm not going to talk about those conversations because then there's going to be articles written that I'm having some big alliance, and there'll be articles written like Elon wasn't, he build it up and then knock it down, and it had nothing to do with it. So I'm just going to say less, unfortunately. Sure.
Louis Bennigan, Benzinga.com. You've pushed hard for electric cars. You want the industry to recognize electric cars. If they actually do, and they start to really produce them at a higher and better level, how much faster is that going to allow you to achieve your goals?
Well, I mean, my goal is acceleration of the advent of electric cars, and so I'd be quite pleased to see other manufacturers make lots of electric cars. And then as to whether Tesla, how Tesla does in that, it's a function of how good are the cars that we make. Are our cars better or worse, about the same as other manufacturers? That will determine how many vehicles we sell. Sure.
Yeah, Lee Thomas Fox 2 right here in Detroit. You're standing in a city that reinvented itself in down times. When you're in down times, what is your philosophy, or what kind of things do you think of to stay positive and going forward when even people, like you said on stage, some people that you respect say it was not going to work? What kind of things do you, or methods do you use to keep your mind in the right place and your company in the right place going forward?
Well, I think I just feel it's making electric cars and bringing them to ultimately to the mass market is an extremely important thing. So even if people are negative or say we're going to fail, I don't care. We're still going to do it. The beginning of Tesla, and even for the first several years, people kept saying how we were going to fail, as though somehow this was new information. I knew that the probability of failure was extremely high. Show in the back there.
Hi, Octavio Blanco with CNN Money. Two-pronged question. Number one is your Gigafactory. Do you foresee that being something that's going to be for the auto industry in general, where you'll sell batteries to not just for your own cars, but also for GM, Ford, and anybody else who wants to buy batteries, so you get sort of the backbone of the electric industry? And number two, what do the automakers need to do to actually start building cars? What needs to happen?
Sure. So, and with Gigafactory, we're sizing it to produce a huge amount of batteries. So, I think we could certainly provide battery packs to other car companies, as we've done before, at a limited scale. It is important to know kind of in advance, with some advance notice, if it's a large order of battery packs, you can't just turn on a dime. It takes a couple of years to facilitize for that. But we're more than happy to supply other manufacturers once we get the factory up and running. And sorry, what was the second question?
What does the automaker
what should they do? They just, I think it's just important for the leaders of the big car companies to initiate serious electric vehicle programs, not small ones that are like the minimum necessary to comply with regulations, but ones that where it's a really serious 250,000 units a year type of product, and you kind of need to go at that sort of volume in order to get the economies of scale to make the car affordable.